The great crystal hall of the Galactic Council stretched far beyond what most beings could see. Thousands of representatives from across the galaxy sat in their special seats, each designed for their different body types. The air hummed with translation devices working hard to turn alien words into something everyone could understand. Ambassador Vexthul of the Corvani Empire stood tall on his 4 legs. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights as his 4 arms moved in big gestures. The other council members had been talking about trade routes and mining rights, but now everything went quiet. Fellow council members, Vexthul began, his voice deep and confident. Today I bring news that will change everything. The Corvani Empire has decided to claim the planet called Earth. A soft gasp ran through the huge room. Counselor Mira 7 of the Zen-3 Federation shifted in her water-filled tank. Her tentacles curled with worry. Earth? The primitive world in the Sol system? But they barely have space travel. Vexthul's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. Exactly why they will be so easy to conquer. Our scouts have watched them for 3 of their years. They burn fossil fuels like children playing with fire. They fight each other with metal bullets and chemical bombs. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no orbital defense stations. Counselor Zenkara from the peaceful Nexus raised one of her 6 hands. Her blue skin was pale with concern. But, Ambassador, these humans have shown they learn very quickly. In just 50 of their years, they went from flying in primitive aircraft to landing on their moon. Perhaps we should try to talk to them first. Talk. Vexthul's voice boomed across the chamber. What will we talk about with such backward creatures? They still think they are alone in the universe. They waste time fighting each other over patches of dirt and invisible lines they draw on maps. Wei Tan from the Archive Collective spoke up, his voice soft but clear. Our cultural studies show that Earth has many different groups of humans. They speak hundreds of different languages and follow many different belief systems. Maybe this diversity makes them stronger than we think. Vexthul waved all 4 arms dismissively. Their diversity makes them weak. While we prepare one invasion force, they will be too busy arguing among themselves to mount any real defense. Our war computers predict total victory within 1 solar rotation. Counselor Dex 9, whose species look like living crystals, chimed with sound like breaking glass. What about the Galactic Protection Treaty? Worlds that have not achieved faster than light travel are supposed to be left alone until they are ready for contact. The treaty protects species that might one day join us as equals. Vexthul replied coldly. These humans will never be our equals. They are too violent, too primitive, too chaotic. It is better for the galaxy if we control them before they develop technology that might make them dangerous. Around the Great Hall, representatives whispered among themselves in dozens of different languages. The Altarians, who looked like tall, thin trees with silver bark, swayed nervously. The Nexri, with their bird-like heads and feathered bodies, clicked their beaks in distress. Mira 7 tried once more. Ambassador, what if you are wrong? What if these humans are more capable than your scouts believe? What if they have hidden weapons or defenses we cannot see? Vexthul's eyes glowed brighter, with confidence. Then we will learn about them as we conquer them. But there is nothing to fear from a species that still uses chemical rockets to barely escape their own gravity well. Our smallest scout ship has more firepower than their entire planet. The council leader, an ancient being whose species had been exploring space when most others were still crawling in mud, spoke with a voice that sounded like wind through caves. If the Corvani Empire is determined to proceed, the council cannot stop you. But we strongly advise caution. Unknown species often have surprises. The only surprise will be how quickly they surrender, Vexthul declared. When they see our ships in their sky, when they realize they face technology thousands of years beyond their understanding, they will have no choice but to submit. As the session ended, Vexthul strode toward the exit, his heavy footsteps echoing through the chamber. Behind him, the other council members sat in uncomfortable silence. Many of them had bad feelings about what was going to happen, but none of them could put their concerns into words. Counselor Yex Prime, whose species had been peaceful for so long they had forgotten how to fight, spoke quietly to his neighbor. Something feels wrong about this. Very wrong. Within days, the Corvani Third Fleet assembled at the edge of known space. 50 great warships, each one capable of destroying cities, began their journey toward a small blue-green world that orbited an ordinary yellow star. They expected to find frightened primitives who would beg for mercy. They had no idea what was actually waiting for them. Admiral Kex Morven stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the blue-green planet that filled the main viewing screen. Earth looked so peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over brown and green continents. His tactical officers had been scanning the planet for 3 days, and their reports were exactly what he expected. No orbital weapons platforms detected. Reported as Aide Nexquill, reading from a glowing data pad. No energy shield generators. No plasma cannon installations. Their most advanced weapons appear to be primitive nuclear devices. Kex Morven's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The conquest would be even easier than predicted. Begin broadcasting surrender demands on all their communication frequencies. Tell them they have 1 rotation to submit to Corvani rule, or we will take their world by force. The communication officer worked at his console for several minutes before looking up with confusion. Sir, we are receiving responses, but they make no sense. One group of humans sent back what our translators identify as insults. Another group sent mathematical equations. A third sent what appears to be music. Ignore their babbling, the Admiral ordered. Primitive minds cannot process the reality of their situation. Begin phase 1 of the invasion. That was when everything started to go wrong. Instead of cities full of frightened humans begging for mercy, the Corvani fleet watched in amazement as Earth's surface began to change. Major population centers went completely dark. Industrial facilities that had been glowing with heat signatures suddenly vanished from their sensors. Sir, called out the sensor operator, his voice shaking with disbelief. The humans are launching nuclear missiles, but not at us. They are firing them at their own cities. On the main screen, bright flashes began appearing across Earth's night side. Human settlements that had taken centuries to build were being destroyed by their own inhabitants. Roads, bridges, factories, power plants, all of it disappearing in mushroom clouds of radioactive fire. Why would they destroy their own infrastructure? Nexquill asked, staring at the display in horror. Do they not understand that we want to use those facilities? Kex Morven felt the first cold touch of doubt. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Perhaps they hoped to deny us resources. No matter. We will rebuild what we need. Launch the landing craft. 200 Corvani transport ships descended through Earth's atmosphere toward major population centers. The Admiral expected to find survivors hiding in rubble, ready to surrender when faced with superior alien technology. Instead, his ground forces walked into carefully prepared traps. The first landing site was a human city called Moscow. When the Corvani soldiers emerged from their transports, the streets appeared empty. Then explosions began erupting all around them. Not from advanced weapons, but from crude devices hidden in abandoned vehicles, buried under roads, even inside what looked like harmless garbage containers. Command! This is Ground Team Alpha, came a panicked voice over the communication system. We are under attack, but we cannot see the enemy. They are using improvised explosive devices made from farming chemicals and scrap metal. Similar reports flooded in from landing sites across the planet. In New York, Corvani soldiers found that every building had been turned into a fortress. Humans fired at them from windows, then disappeared through hidden tunnels. In London, the humans had flooded the underground transportation system, making it impossible for Corvani forces to move safely through the city. But the strangest reports came from a place called Tokyo. Sir, a ground commander reported, his voice filled with confusion. The humans here are fighting to the death to protect small furry creatures. Our translators indicate they call them cats and dogs. Why would they die for non-intelligent animals? More bizarre behavior followed. Human soldiers would charge directly at Corvani positions, not to win battles they could not win, but to buy time for other humans to escape with items that had no military value. They died protecting pieces of colored cloth, old books, and even small plants. They form emotional bonds with everything, reported another ground commander. Not just their offspring, but with objects, animals, even with land they have never seen before. A human will fight as hard for a stranger's child as for their own. The most disturbing discovery came when Corvani engineers tried to examine captured human weapons. What looked like primitive firearms were actually precisely crafted tools. The humans had not built them randomly. Every component served multiple purposes. Their simple explosives could be modified in dozens of ways depending on the target. Within one rotation, something impossible happened. Human resistance fighters began appearing with weapons that looked suspiciously similar to Corvani energy rifles, but built from scavenged materials and powered by modified human technology. "Sir," Nexquill reported, his voice barely a whisper, "our ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation from all landing sites. The humans are not just fighting us, they are studying us, learning from every engagement." Admiral Kex Morvan stared at Earth with growing horror. This was supposed to be a simple conquest of frightened primitives. Instead, his forces were being slowly ground down by creatures who seemed to treat warfare as a form of art they had been perfecting for thousands of years. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in stunned silence as report after report arrived from the Sol system. What should have been news of a quick Corvani victory had turned into something nobody could have imagined. Counselor Zenkara held a data crystal in her trembling hands. Her blue skin had turned almost white with shock. "The latest intelligence reports from the invasion zone make no sense at all," she announced to the assembled delegates. "The humans are not fighting like any species we have ever encountered." On the great display screen, images flickered from the surface of Earth. Corvani soldiers ran through burning streets while explosions erupted around them. But these were not military explosions from proper weapons. These came from devices that looked like they had been built in someone's kitchen. "They are making bombs from fertilizer used to grow food," Zenkara continued, reading from the reports. "They take chemicals meant for cleaning and turn them into weapons that burn through Corvani armor. They use farming equipment to build traps that can destroy our vehicles." Wei Tan from the Archive Collective stood up, his data pad glowing with hundreds of intercepted human communications. "But the strangest thing is not their weapons. It is why they fight. Listen to this transmission we captured from a human resistance cell." A scratchy voice filled the chamber, speaking the human language called English. The translation came a moment later. "They killed my dog. These alien bastards killed my dog. I do not care if I die. I am going to make them pay." Confused murmurs rippled through the assembly. Counselor Dex 9, whose crystal body rang like a bell when he was upset, chimed loudly. "They are willing to die for non-intelligent animals? This makes no tactical sense." "It gets worse," Wei Tan said, pulling up more communications. "Here is another one. They burned down the school where my grandfather learned to read. Nobody burns down my grandfather's school. And this one, they stepped on the flag my brother died carrying. Now they all die." Mira 7 shifted in her water tank, her tentacles curling with anxiety. "They form emotional attachments to objects that have no strategic value, to buildings they do not even use anymore, to pieces of cloth. The Corvani field commanders are calling it pack bonding," Zenkara explained. "But it is unlike anything in our xenobiology databases. Humans will fight just as hard for a stranger's child as for their own. They will die to protect pets that belong to people they have never met. They will charge into certain death to save books, paintings, even small plants." The reports kept coming, each one more impossible than the last. In a city called Berlin, human fighters had held a single building for 12 days against overwhelming Corvani forces. When the aliens finally broke through, they found that the humans had been protecting a small room full of musical instruments. Not weapons, not food, just tools for making sounds. In Rome, an entire human resistance cell had been wiped out defending a fountain. Not a water source they needed to survive, but an old stone fountain that had no practical purpose except to look nice. The humans called it art and died rather than let the Corvani damage it. But perhaps most disturbing were the reports about human learning ability. Yex Prime from the Technical Council stood to address the assembly, his thin frame shaking with worry. The Corvani sent us weapon fragments recovered from human fighters. These are not the primitive firearms we expected. The display showed images of strange hybrid weapons. They look like human rifles, but powered by Corvani energy cells. Crude metal tubes that fire projectiles guided by captured alien targeting systems. Explosive devices that use human chemical knowledge combined with Corvani technology. They are reverse engineering our equipment faster than should be possible. Yex Prime continued. A Corvani energy rifle takes our engineers months to design and build. Humans are creating working copies in weeks, using materials they find in destroyed buildings. Counselor Jean Howe, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, spoke in a voice like wind through ancient trees. How long has this invasion been going on? 97 local days, Zenkara replied. And in that time, these humans have learned to duplicate technology that took the Corvani thousands of years to develop. Not just duplicate. Yex Prime said grimly, improve. Some of the weapons they are building are more effective than the originals. They are making modifications that our own engineers never thought of. The assembly fell silent. Outside the great windows of the council chamber, stars twinkled peacefully in the void. But everyone in that room was beginning to understand that something had gone terribly wrong in the Sol system. A new transmission arrived from Admiral Kexmorvan. His voice, once full of confidence, now carried the edge of panic. Council command, we need immediate reinforcements. The humans have converted their entire industrial base to weapons production. Every factory, every workshop, every school is now building tools of war. They are not just defending their world anymore. They are preparing for something else. Preparing for what? Zenkara asked. The Admiral's reply chilled every being in the chamber. We think they are getting ready to follow us home. The emergency council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy had come to hear what the Archive Collective had discovered about the humans. Counselor Wei Tan stood at the center of the Great Hall, surrounded by floating data crystals that glowed with ancient information. His hands shook as he activated the first display. Fellow council members, we have made a terrible mistake. When we classified Earth as a primitive world, we only looked at their technology. We never studied their history. The holographic display showed Earth as it was millions of years ago. Ice covered most of the continents, and the oceans were frozen solid. This planet has tried to kill everything living on it for millions of years, Wei Tan explained. Ice ages that would destroy most civilizations happened there every few thousand years. The humans survived them all. Counselor Mira Seven's tentacles pressed against her water tank in distress. But ice ages are natural. Many worlds experience climate changes. Not like this, Wei Tan replied, activating another crystal. The display showed massive volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and earthquakes that split continents in half. Earth is what we call a death world. The geology alone should have prevented complex life from ever developing, but somehow it did. New images appeared showing Earth's animal life. Creatures with massive teeth and claws filled the screen. Bears that stood 3 meters tall. Cats with fangs longer than most beings' arms. Sharks that could bite through metal. Snakes whose venom could kill in minutes. Every other species on their planet is designed to kill, Wei Tan continued. Most worlds have maybe 1 or 2 apex predator species. Earth has hundreds, and the humans not only survive alongside them, they made many of them into companions. Counselor Zenkara spoke up, her blue skin now completely pale. The pack bonding behavior. They learned to work with other predator species. Worse than that, Wei Tan said grimly, they learned to think like them. Look at this. The display changed to show human history. Images of battles filled the screen, humans fighting with spears, swords, guns, and bombs. Cities burning, armies clashing, weapons that could destroy entire continents. They have been at war for their entire recorded history, Wei Tan announced. Not occasional wars like most civilizations experience. Constant, never-ending conflict. They fight over territory, resources, ideas, even things they call religion. The X-Prime from the Technical Council stood up, his voice trembling. But surely they must have periods of peace? Wei Tan laughed bitterly. They call it peace when only a few million of them are dying in wars at the same time. What we would consider a small border dispute, they call a peaceful era. The display showed more images. Human children playing games that involved mock battles. Human sports where teams fought to control territory. Human entertainment that consisted of watching fictional wars and violence. Competition and conflict are not just part of their society, Wei Tan explained. These concepts are built into their psychology at the most basic level. They cannot exist without struggling against something. When they have no external enemies, they fight each other. When they have no one to fight, they create games and sports that simulate warfare. Counselor Dex 9 chimed with distress. But they seemed so primitive. Their technology was so far behind ours. That is what makes them truly terrifying, Wei Tan replied. He activated another data crystal, showing recent intelligence from the invasion zone. They do not need advanced technology to be dangerous. They are living weapons that learn to use tools. The screen showed human fighters moving through ruined cities. But they did not move like civilians forced to defend their homes. They moved like predators hunting prey. Every step was calculated. Every position was chosen for maximum tactical advantage. Watch how they fight, Wei Tan said. They do not just react to Corvani attacks. They predict them. They set traps 3 and 4 moves ahead. This is not something they learn from military training. This is how their minds naturally work. New reports from Admiral Kex Morvan appeared on screen. His forces had tried to establish secure bases in major human cities, but every single outpost had been destroyed, not through direct assault, but through careful campaigns that lasted weeks. The humans study our patrol patterns, the Admiral reported. They learn our communication schedules. They figure out which of our soldiers are leaders and which are followers. Then they strike at exactly the right moment to cause maximum damage with minimum risk to themselves. Wei Tan brought up the most disturbing intelligence yet. They are not just defending their world anymore. 3 days ago, human fighters captured an intact Corvani shuttle. Within 18 hours, they had it completely disassembled. Within 36 hours, they understood how it worked. Within 48 hours, they had built their own version. The assembly erupted in shocked voices. Building a spaceship should take years, even with existing plans. The humans had done it in 2 days using scrap metal and captured parts. But the worst part, Wei Tan said, his voice dropping to a whisper, is what they did next. They did not use their new shuttle to escape. They loaded it with explosives and crashed it into the Corvani command ship. Jean Hao, the ancient counselor, spoke the words everyone was thinking. We have not discovered a primitive species. We have found a world full of natural-born warriors who have been trapped on one planet for thousands of years, and we just gave them the key to the stars. Admiral Kex Morvan stood alone on his command bridge, staring at the ruins of what had once been the pride of the Corvani fleet. Half of his ships were gone. The other half were barely holding together. Around him, his remaining crew worked frantically to prepare for retreat. Sir, his communications officer called out, voice shaking with fear. We are receiving another transmission from the human resistance. Put on screen, the Admiral ordered, though he dreaded what he might hear. A human face appeared on the display. The being looked young by human standards, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to burn with intelligence. When it spoke, the words were in perfect Corvani language. Admiral Kex Morvan, the human said calmly, My name is Kim Min-ho. I represent the Earth Defense Coalition. We want to thank you for the gifts you have brought us. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in confusion. Gifts? Your technology. Min-ho replied with what humans called a smile. Your ships, your weapons, your star charts. Everything we needed to join the galactic community. We have been waiting so long to meet our neighbors. Behind Min-ho, other humans moved in and out of view. They wore armor that looked like a mixture of human and Corvani design. They carried weapons that should not have been possible to build with Earth's resources. But somehow they had done it. You cannot have mastered our technology so quickly, the Admiral protested. It took my people thousands of years to develop spaceflight. Minho's smile grew wider. Admiral, your people had to invent everything from the beginning. We just had to understand what you had already built. It is much faster when you have a working example to study. The display changed to show images from across Earth. Human factories that had once built automobiles were now producing spacecraft. Schools had been converted into research centers where human children studied captured Corvani equipment. Even farms have been turned into training grounds where humans learn to fight in zero gravity. This is impossible. Next Quill whispered from a station. How can an entire species adapt so quickly? Minho seemed to hear the question. Because we have been preparing for this moment our entire history. Every war we fought, every competition we created, every challenge we overcame, all led to this. We knew that someday we would meet other species among the stars. We just did not know when. The Admiral felt cold fear spreading through his body. What do you want from us? Nothing from you personally, Minho replied. You were just doing what you thought was right. But we do want to meet the Galactic Council. We have so many questions about our new neighbors. As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the Corvani ship. The sensor operator looked up with terror in his eyes. Sir, we are detecting multiple spacecraft approaching our position. They appear to be human vessels. On the tactical display, dozens of ships appeared. They looked nothing like proper spacecraft, more like flying scrap heaps held together with cables and welded metal plates. But they moved with purpose, forming precise attack formations around the remaining Corvani fleet. Do not worry, Admiral. Minho said from the screen, we are not here to destroy you. We are here to escort you home. Escort us home? The Admiral repeated. Of course. Someone needs to deliver our message to the Galactic Council. We want to apply for membership. The Admiral's hands moved frantically over his control console, sending an emergency transmission to the Corvani homeworld. Command, this is Admiral Kexmorvan. The invasion has failed. Repeat, the invasion has completely failed. These beings are not primitive. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Abort all military operations in the Sol system immediately. He paused, looking at the human ships surrounding his fleet, and send word to the Council. The humans are coming whether we invite them or not. They now have our technology, our star charts, and our ship designs. They know where we live. Minho nodded approvingly from the screen. Very good, Admiral. We will follow your ships home at a respectful distance. We do not want to cause any panic. When you arrive at your homeworld, please tell your leaders that Earth sends greetings and looks forward to peaceful relations with all galactic civilizations. The transmission ended, leaving the Corvani bridge in stunned silence. Around them, human ships began moving into escort formation, keeping pace with the retreating alien fleet like wolves herding sheep. 3 days later, emergency sessions convened throughout the galaxy as news of the failed invasion spread. The Galactic Council chambers filled with frightened representatives trying to understand what had happened in the Sol system. Counselor Gene House stood at the center of the assembly, his ancient voice carrying across the vast hall. We always wondered why no spacefaring species evolved naturally in the Sol system. We assumed it was because the inhabitants were too primitive to achieve spaceflight. He paused, looking around at the hundreds of alien faces staring back at him. Now we understand the truth. Something was keeping them contained on that world. Perhaps the universe itself knew what would happen if these beings ever learned to travel between stars. As he spoke, long-range sensors detected the first human ships entering the outer regions of galactic space. They moved slowly, carefully, studying everything they encountered. Behind them, more ships followed. And behind those, even more. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.